Hello, this is Jonas or Synogian, and I'm making a tutorial for how to edit and create maps for our Plasma RPG engine for tile-based games. We'll be using Tiled, which is a map creation program. Okay, so the first map you see here is the test map, which is the first map that you enter when you enter the game. And you see that I've made an exit here to demo. So we need to create a map called demo, which will load when the user exits this map. Okay, so in tiled, excuse me, I have a cold, so sorry about the sniffling. So we need a new map in tiled. The map is going to be 30 by 20 tiles, and the tile size is 16 for this tile set. So we'll save that as. We need to save maps into the assets folder in the map subdirectory, and we'll call it demo. So the first thing we need to do is create our tile layers. So the first tile layer that we'll create is one already created by default. We'll just rename that to ground. That's going to be the ground layer under the player's feet. We'll add one more tile layer for collision. We'll call that blocking. And for the collision, any collision layers, you need to add a custom property just called collision, which is a Boolean, which means true or false, and set it to true. We need one more layer called a floating layer, and this is for things that will float over the player's head. That way we get a semi-3D effect. And same with collision, we need to give it a property called floating and set it to true. There are three more object layers that we need in order to add things that the player can interact with. The first one is objects. This will be things that the player can, like signs or books that the player can read, things like that. The second one is mobs. And that's going to be for creatures that the player can interact with. And the third one is zones. And those are the entrances and exits to the map. Okay, so now we need to add some graphics to the map on our ground layer. So we need to add a new tile set. 16 pixels is the tile size. In the project, I have some tile sets under the assets folder. And the one we're going to use today is called Time Fantasy. That's a licensed tile set that we've paid for. For ground terrain, we need to use the terrain tile set, so I'll add that. Okay, here's our terrain tile set. So now if we choose the stamp tool and choose a tile, anywhere we click, it's going to add that tile to the map. When I want to fill a large space, I like to use the paint bucket, which will fill the whole screen. But for things like grass terrain, I like to randomize it a little bit. So what you can do is you can choose 3 similar tiles together, and then choose the dice here, which will mean it'll dump a random one of these 3 tiles into the screen. So you can see it gives it more of a natural look. There, that's better. So now we have the ground. In order to enter this map, we need an entrance. So that goes into the zones tile layer. And I've created a little helper tile set just so we know what we're adding to the object layer. So we'll say add a new tile set, browse, and this is in the, let's see, the assets folder under tile sets. There's a picture here called map objects. That's just a little helper object. You see I have little icons for things that you can add to the map. These won't display, but it just tells the person creating the map what's on the map. Say OK. Now we have a map objects layer. Now here's one quirk in tiled for object layers tile sets. You need to set the object alignment to top left. Otherwise, it's going to get the wrong coordinates. This is just a quirk in the tiled program. So save that, close it. We also want to make sure for objects that we have snap to grid on. Otherwise, objects can go in between tiles, which we don't want since this is a tile-based game. So you just want to make sure you say view, snapping, and snap to grid is on. Okay, so let's add our exit zone. For zones, I use these arrow icons just to tell me which direction the player is going to exit. For objects, we use this menu, and so we need the insert tile command. All right, so we'll just place it here on the top someplace. Now for a name for this object, we need the name of the zone it's going to zone into. So that's test for the test map. For the type tells it what direction the player goes in to enter this zone. And so you use the number keypad to tell directions. So for north, that would be an 8. For south, it would be a 2. For east, it would be a 6. Just look at your number keypad, and so you know which direction. So 8 is north. And we'll save this, and we'll try it. Okay, I'll run the project. I've already added the demo map to the server. That's a manual step. So if you add a new custom map, you need to ask me to edit the server file, or you can do it yourself. All right, we'll load the project. Start. Now in theory, when I go to the bottom of the screen, it'll zone into our new map. And there we are. Not a very interesting map, but now we can add some more details. We'll go back to tiled. Okay, so now we can add, let's say, a road. We'll go back to our terrain tile map. On the right side of the terrain tile map are road tiles. So we'll pick one we like, let's say this one. Oh, we're still in random mode, turn that off. And we need to go into stamp mode to click to place individual tiles. All right, so we'll draw a load, la 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 la. Goes to the right, goes down, goes over. You can add decorations to it. This tile set has a lot of, it doesn't like straight edges, so there's a lot of decorations here. So if, say for instance, we want to dump an edge to the road, we can add that so it blends with the grass. And put the other edge as well. And it has turns and corners and things like that that we can add as well to make the map look nicer. If we want to add decorations on top of the grass, like flowers or things like that, let's see, we need to add another tile set because this tile set is all full tiles. We'll add one that's partial tiles, and I'll show you how to do that. So let's add a new tile set that contains some decorations. In Time Fantasy, there's one called Outside that has trees and flowers and things like that. We'll add that one. Okay. Outside is our tile set. So let's see what happens if we try to add a stone, for instance. It replaced the grass tile, and so now there's a big hole in our tile set. We don't want that, so let's undo that. So what we want to do when we layer something on top of the ground tile is we add a new tile layer, call it ground 2. Now when we place things on top of that, it doesn't replace the tile, it sits on top of it. And the engine will blend these two layers together to make one single image when it renders. So we can add some more stones, make it nice, different color stones, maybe some bushes. Okay, why don't we try that map? I'll save it, and then you need to wait a few seconds for the engine to reload that map, otherwise you'll get the old map when you travel there. So waited a few seconds, I'll reload the project. And now we have our nice decorations in our road. You see that if I walk on top of these, it just goes right over them. There's no blocking because they're not on the blocking layer. They're on the ground layer. All right, so let's add something that will actually block us, like a tree or something. We'll go back to our map. We have to make sure that the blocking layer is selected. And then we'll add a tree. Let's see, find one. I'll add this tree here. Now for the blocking layer, for a tree, we want it to have sort of a 3D effect so the player can walk behind it. So we only add the part to the blocking layer that's going to block the player. So we'll just add this, the trunk here as blocking. And then on the floating layer, we'll add the rest of the tree so that the player can walk behind it. Okay, we'll try that. Save it, wait a few seconds for the new map to load. Reload the project. Now we'll interact with our tree. All right, there's our tree. You can see if we try to walk into the trunk, we're blocked. We can't. But if we walk behind the tree, it's floating above us. Okay. Now, how about we add something that we can interact with, like a sign or something like that. Okay. So we don't want to be able to walk through it, so we'll add it to our blocking layer. We'll find a sign graphic that we like. We'll take this one. We'll put it over here by our rocks, maybe. So now it's blocking, but we want to make it interactive. So we need to go to our objects tile layer, and then we'll place a map object on there, which is a helper object. It just tells the map creator what's there. So we have to do insert tile. This graphic I use for interactive objects. It's just looks like a little text. And I'll place it right on top of the sign. Now you can give it a name, which we aren't currently using, but eventually we may display that. So make sure you give it an important name or a meaningful name. And then for readable objects, they need a property called text, which is a string. And so the sign will say, hello, I am a nice looking sign. Okay, we'll save that. Wait a few seconds. Reload the project and try to go read our sign. If we did everything correctly, we should be able to see text now. All right, enter the map. Hello, I am a nice looking sign. When you walk away, the text disappears. You can read it again and again. Okay, let's see. Next we could add an NPC, for instance. We'll go back to our map. An NPC is also just an object. It functions the same as a sign or something like that for right now. We may change that in the future. We might have our own NPCs object layer, but I'll update everybody if that happens. So for NPCs, I like to use this little happy smiley face. So I'll put somebody here. Give him a name, Jimbo. The type is NPC. Now if this was a, well, okay, we need to give him a graphic. And the way you do that is you add the sprite atlas, which is um, the name of the sprite that holds the characters that you want to get this character from. That's what's known in programming as a sprite atlas. So we'll call it atlas. That's a string. I think this character is on NPC 1 atlas. We need a model, which is the actual character you want. We'll choose the farmer. And then we need to give him something to say. If this was a dialogue character, we could add a property called dialogue, and then put in the name of the dialogue you want this character to use. The dialogues come from a Twine that get imported into the project from Twine. But we just want this person to say something simple, so we'll just give him a text property. We'll say, hello, welcome to the new map. We'll save that, and we'll see if our farmer is there. See if I waited enough time. No, I didn't. Try again. There's our farmer. You see it can take up to about 10 seconds before the new map is loaded. So if you don't see new changes that you made, you either forgot to save the map or you just didn't wait enough time. So we'll go walk up to him, talk to him. Hello, welcome to the new map. Pretty simple. I don't think I'll demonstrate mobs yet because they're still a work in progress. They're basically the same idea as the NPCs, except you enter a combat mode when you interact with them. But with this information, you can create some pretty complex large maps if you want to, and decorate them as much as you want. So I hope you learned something from this today. And if you have any questions, of course, just ask me, Jonas, or Synogian on the Discord server. And happy map making.